So a lot of people are starting to talk about who could potentially be Donald Trump's pick for vice president. Who's going to be his running mate? My question is, who in their right mind would want that job? Who would really want to be attached to Donald Trump at this point? Because you're going to have to run on Donald Trump's record, and you're going to be constantly having to defend everything he's done. Plus, you're going to be running on the fact that we've had the least productive Congress since the Great Depression. So, what exactly do you even go to bat for? I would not want to be that person. But what is so bizarre about this to me is there's people actually lined up and pick me, and it is the craziest thing I've ever seen. And my good friend D Knight is here to talk more about this crazy cast of characters that's up for potential VP picks. You guys be sure to go over and subscribe to D's channel at Pardon the Insurrection Podcast, and let's let him talk to you a little bit about this madness.
You talk multiple times about it. In fact, at the end of the book, you say the very first thing you would do if you got to the White House that was different from Joe Biden is you'd make sure Joe Biden's dog was nowhere on the grounds. Commander, say hello to Cricket. Are you doing this to try to look tough? Do you still think that you have a shot at being a VP?
Well, number one, Joe Biden's dog has attacked 24 Secret Service people. So how many people is enough people to be attacked and dangerously hurt before you make a decision on a dog and what to do with it?
Well, he's not living at the White House
That's
anymore.
a question that the president should be held accountable to.
Because when getting destroyed for shooting one dog in the face isn't enough, you have to aim your sights a little bit higher. No pun intended. But this is D Knight from the Pardon the Insurrection Podcast, coming to you from Nashville, Tennessee. And I'd like to give my thanks to Tennessee Brando for having me on. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Otherwise, Kristi Noem's going to shoot your dog in the face. But that was South Dakota's governor alluding to a number of details from her new and horrendous book where she's made numerous misclaims, like saying that she's traveled to North Korea and that she's met the North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un. I mean, these things are easily disprovable. Like, I feel like this is the reverse of Obama's birth certificate. Just show us the passport. My gosh. Like, she's clearly a sociopath who's willing to do whatever it takes to get the nod from Trump to become his VP pick. And, well, she's clearly not the only one, as even though South Dakota isn't sending us their best, neither is North Dakota.
You were there with Donald Trump last night at Mar-a-Lago, where he claimed Biden was like the Gestapo, referring to the Nazi secret police. Are you comfortable with the presumptive Republican presidential nominee comparing the Biden administration to the Gestapo?
Well, Jake, first, great to be with you. And I would say yesterday we had an opportunity to listen to the president talk for 90 minutes without a teleprompter, covering a wide range of topics and largely very upbeat because if the election was held today, Trump would be winning. And relative to the reference you're discussing, I mean, this was a short comment deep into the thing that wasn't really central to what he was talking about. But I understand and I think Americans understand, a majority of Americans feel like the trial that he's in right now is politically motivated.
So a public trial with witnesses, a jury, a defense counsel, that's like the Gestapo, the Nazi secret police?
Well, he certainly didn't say that yesterday, and he wasn't referring to this trial when he made that comment. But I do think that people understand that. I mean, I'm a business guy. This is a business filing case. If it was anybody other than a presidential candidate, this would be a misdemeanor. How it got turned into 34 felonies when there isn't even the alleged crime, which is they haven't even convinced anybody there was a crime, but if it were, it would be a Federal Election Commission crime, and that would be pursued by the federal courts, not by a county DA in New York.
A lot of insane rambling in there, for starters, if the election were held today. According to new polls from NPR and ABC, Trump would lose by 4 to 5 points, depending on which of those polls you subscribe to. Also, this idea that Biden is unleashing the Gestapo is wild, given that in a New Times Magazine interview, Trump revealed that he'd be willing to unleash the military on American soil to quote-unquote round up illegal immigrants. He also said he'd be willing to induce local police departments to engage in those efforts, so those would literally be his own brown shirts. Also, this idea that the prosecution of Trump in this election interference / hush money trial is somehow the result of Biden's actions is totally wrong. For one, this investigation spun off from the Russia investigation, thanks to Robert Mueller. Also, the Manhattan DA's office, well, that's not part of Biden's Justice Department. And if you do think the Justice Department should have prosecuted Trump in this regard, well, Bill Barr personally intervened and made sure that didn't happen. But all those facts aside, let's hear more from Doug Burgum.
Let me just ask you, if Donald Trump becomes a convicted felon because of this case, will that affect your support for him for president?
Well, if he becomes a convicted felon in this case, that's just a travesty of justice. Because as I just said, when you've got a business filing error that is for something that was, again, it's not illegal to pay people for non-disclosure agreements. That happens all the time. I'm sure this network and others have done that. And like I said, if filing error is not something that would affect any American. People that are trying to put food on the table and gas in the car, it doesn't affect them. And so it is. This is why the outcome of this trial is not going to change a lot of people's minds. It might actually, in some ways, help President Trump because it reinforces the idea that the Biden administration is willing to use lawfare to try to attack a political opponent.
There's no evidence that Joe Biden has anything to do with this case brought forward by District Attorney Bragg. And you keep describing it as a filing error. I guess that's one interpretation. Another interpretation is that Donald Trump's attorney, Michael Cohen, paid hush money to hide from the American people before the election the fact that Mr. Trump had a rendezvous with a porn star, and that they wanted to hide that from the American people until after the election. So far, the evidence that I've seen suggests there at least was some political motivation to this, and they hid it so as to hide that from the public. That's a little bit more than just checking the wrong box on a form.
Well, that was just utter sycophancy. Maybe we should hear from another presidential hopeful in Marco Rubio.
Before you go, though, you're in Florida. You're spending time with President Trump. Everyone says you're on his VP shortlist, but that there may be a technical glitch with having two people from the same state when it comes down to an electoral college vote. Would you leave the state of Florida or change your residency if you were asked to join the ticket?
Well, first of all, the vice presidential choice for Donald Trump is going to be made by one person, and that's Donald Trump. And all this other stuff is just speculation. And I get it. You know, political reporters have to cover political topics. The primary's over. The general's 6 months away. So they're going to speculate on the VP thing. And I would just say, forget leaving me aside for a moment. I think that before anyone decides to move from their state, you better make sure you move to a state where there's not some DA that makes a career after going after Republicans. Because what we're seeing all over the country right now is the weaponization of our criminal justice system, not just to go after Donald Trump, which is now well documented, right? You have a Biden supporting judge, a Biden prosecutor in the most liberal county in America on ridiculous charges, and the rest of the world is watching that saying, you know, this is the stuff that America used to sanction other countries for doing.
Okay.
Well, it's happening here in America, but I think that that's something that we need to be focused on, because I do think that has an impact on people's thinking about getting into politics.
Okay, so if you do move, not to New York.
Well, notice he didn't say no there. Also, it's kind of ironic that Republicans are irate that the guy who wanted to lock up Hillary Clinton and lock up Obama and lock up Joe Biden is now currently on trial for crimes that we all watched him commit. It's funny that. But let's hear more political insights from Marco Rubio.
Well, what I'm more worried about is that no one ever asked the vice president, Kamala Harris, or any Democrat, what restrictions do they support? Which abortion should not be allowed? They never tell you. Should someone be allowed to do an abortion on the day of birth, after birth, 9 months? Should past the point of viability? Well, they will never tell you which abortions should not be allowed.
First of all, aborting a baby after it's born is called murder. It's illegal. No one's doing that. It's always been illegal. And also this accusation that no one on the left can tell you what position they support. I don't know. How about we bring back Roe v. Wade? Seemed to be doing a pretty good job, as it was the law of the land for the last 50 years and kind of balanced the needs of a mom versus her unborn fetus. But regardless of those particular laws, let's hear a little bit more from Marco Rubio.
I think Joe Biden, or he hasn't done it again because he's weak and he's feeble. But Joe Biden.
Well, I believe Marco Rubio to be feek and weeble, whatever that means. Maybe we'll have better luck with other GOP vice presidential hopefuls.
The fact of the matter is that every single Democrat in the Senate and in the House have voted for abortion up until the day of birth. The former governor of Virginia has said he was a pediatrician, even infanticide. So stopping late-term abortions
Democrats
is
don't
something
support
that 90% of Americans
Democrats
actually
don't
believe.
support that. Just very quickly, though, it's important to point out abortions in later-term pregnancies are exceedingly rare. Have you changed your position, though? Do you still support a national abortion ban?
I support having the next president of the United States be the most pro-life president we've had.
Yes or no? National abortion ban? Senator, do you support a national abortion ban?
Here's what we know. It will never get to the president's desk.
When Marco Rubio was saying that people won't explain their actual position on this matter, I think he was talking about Republicans. And did they get the same talking points memo or something? Because it's incredible that they've all landed on the same line. And of course, if you see Kristen Welker pushing back on your responses, you done messed up somewhere. But let's hear more from GOP VP hopeful Tim Scott.
And so I expect the election to be fair, and I expect Donald Trump to be our next president.
In terms of what he said, he specifically said, if it's not fair, as you're saying, you have to fight for the right of the country. And just this week, he said that he won Wisconsin. Falsely, Senator. So again, to the point, you voted to certify the election results of 2020. It's the exact opposite of what you said and did after 2020. Why would you want to be on a ticket with someone where there's such a fundamental difference?
There is clear facts here. President Trump himself said he expects this election to be fair, he expects it to be honest, and he expects to win. That's what the presidential candidate should expect, and I expect the exact same thing. And frankly, the American people agree with him. This is an issue that is not an issue, so I'm not going to make it an issue.
Well, Senator, will you commit to accepting the election results of 2024? Bottom line.
Well, at the end of the day, the 47th president of the United States will be President Donald Trump, and I'm excited to get back to low inflation, low unemployment.
Wait, Senator, yes or no? Yes or no? Will you accept the election results of 2024 no matter who wins?
That is my statement.
But is it just yes or no? Will you accept the election results of 2024?
I look forward to President Trump being the 47th president. Kristen, you could ask him multiple times.
Senator, just a yes or no answer.
So the American people will make the decision.
But I don't hear you committing
for President Trump. That's clear.
I don't hear you committing to the election results.
Here's the challenge.
Will you commit to accepting the election results?
This is why so many Americans believe that NBC is an extension of the Democrat Party.
Why can't these people answer a forking question? And when they do, why is it always a lie? My goodness. But let's hear more from Tim Scott.
You were there for what is being described as an audition to be a potential VP pick with former President Donald Trump. So let me just ask you, did you discuss with the former president the possibility of being his running mate, Senator?
No, man. What we talked about this weekend was how bad the economy is for single parents like the one that raised me. We had a lot of conversations around the room about the importance of eliminating Bidenomics, about the importance of getting inflation back down to 2%. We were just better off under President Trump. Inflation, Kristen, was at 2%, and we had the lowest unemployment rates for African Americans, for Hispanics, for Asians, a 70-year low for women. We had the highest funding for historically black colleges and universities.
A couple of points on the economy. Of course, the inflation rate has come down significantly from its high in 2022. In terms of black unemployment, it was actually at its lowest rate last year, 4.7% in April of 2023 as compared to 5.3% under 2019 with Donald Trump. But just to be very clear, it didn't come up at all? Do you think you're on the short list?
No, ma'am, it did not come up. African-American unemployment rate is 6.4 today.
But what about being VP? What about being President Trump's VP? Did it come up at all? Do you think you're on his short list?
I hope that the president will choose a person who helps the country unite and heal. I certainly expect to have a decision from President Trump in the next 60 days or so, but he did not bring it up. I certainly didn't bring it up.
You just stop and take a look at all the commonalities between some of the people on Trump's short list to be VP, like Noem, Burgum, Rubio, and Scott there. First of all, you have to be insane. You have to be a sociopath. You have to be a liar. You can't accept the results of the 2024 election unless Trump wins, of course. And if Trump loses, you can't promise that there won't be violence. Like, this used to be the party of Lincoln, and now it's somehow devolved into a doomsday cult. I don't know how we got here, but if I had to choose personally, I hope Trump picks Kristi Noem as his VP, because she's shown the proclivity to make the decision that if you appear to be useless, she's willing to take you out into the gravel pit and do what needs to be done. We've all seen Trump's decline in performance here, so one can only hope. But if you enjoyed this video, hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Give it a thumbs up. Helps out the algorithm, gets this in front of more eyeballs, and feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments below. And you can find me on my personal podcast, Pardon the Insurrection, available everywhere podcasts are found.